topics throughout today. By attending a theater session and having your badge scanned, you'll be entered into a drawing to receive a grand prize. Be sure to check your phone at the end of the day to see if you've won. Deloitte and AWS bring together Deloitte's market-leading innovation, specialized insights, professional networks, industry experience, and AWS's industry-leading cloud technologies. What does that mean exactly? Well, for your enterprise, it means a wide range, build your business, powered by cloud, and get to the future faster. In this session, you'll learn about Deloitte Cloud Managed Services. Deloitte provides managed information technology services for government human resources organizations. Our Gateway product provides employee onboarding services running in AWS GovCloud. Deloitte demonstrates how we leverage AWS to manage the environment using an immutable infrastructure approach. We describe how GitOps can be used to drive infrastructure, configuration, and code changes from development to production using a completely automated deployment pipeline. To learn more, please help me welcome Alphonse Lolaine, Tech Manager in Cloud.
Awesome.
Over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thanks everybody for joining. My name is Alphonse Lolaine, as she said. I'm a manager in our technology cloud practice at Deloitte. Essentially, Deloitte Cloud Managed Services is a set of strategies, a set of assets and accelerators, essentially, to help our clients hit the ground running from an implementation perspective and keep operations up on some of their cloud implementations as well. Today, what we really like to do is to talk to you guys a little bit about an implementation that we perform for a large federal client. Essentially, what this does is we actually tweaked some of the assets that we received from Deloitte Cloud Managed Services, and we were able to adapt those to the requirements that our client needed specifically. Today I have with me Brian Kleeman, who is our infrastructure engineer on the implementation, as well as Van Vong, who is also one of our software engineers who helped us to build out and tweak some of the concepts for Deloitte Cloud Managed Services and accelerate delivery for our client. To talk a little bit about the requirements that we had to meet. Essentially, what we did here was we needed to host a piece of software that was the part of the HR automation piece that Deloitte had implemented for our large federal client. It was called Gateway, and definitely stored a lot of sensitive data. There were also some geographically dispersed users. Essentially, we needed to supply a hosting solution, and AWS was selected, and accelerators were provided by Deloitte Cloud Managed Services. Some of the ones that we wanted to focus on today, one is our architecture and security piece, which tells us a little bit about essentially how we're going to design our architecture to support the application. It also gave us a lot of controls to make sure that we were meeting the standards and practices, NIST controls, and meeting our FISMA high categorization. And then the piece that we want to talk to and dive in today is the build, launch, operate technology and concepts that we leveraged and implemented in AWS GovCloud, making a couple different choices with tools, as well as some concepts that we implemented with services that weren't available in GovCloud versus commercial AWS. So that enabled us for continuous integration and delivery, speed to value for our clients, as well as focusing on the application, while Deloitte Cloud Managed Services helped us from one, a design and architecture perspective, and then two, from an operational perspective, so we could focus on the application and delivering the most value to our clients. So jumping in, one of the first things we want to talk about is our architecture and security. Deloitte Cloud Managed Services provided us the architecture to host the environment. One of the things was that we needed a connection to an agency, and we wanted a shared connection. We implemented a transit zone concept, which essentially allows us to share the connection through multiple VPCs, as well as serve as a spoke for us to communicate with our agency. So Brian, give us a little bit more insight around some of the benefits we got from the transit zone, as well as the way we've architected this VPC.
Sure, so is everybody familiar with transit VPC? So it's a single point of what we don't know. So a transit VPC is a VPC that sits in front of your entire environment. So staging, prod, and managed services, they're also VPCs. Typically within AWS, you have peering between VPCs. What transit allows you to do is encrypted VPN tunnels. So everything's going to go back through transit. So if we're talking from managed services to prod, it all flows like that. So it's up one tunnel, down one tunnel, it's all encrypted. Right, so what that also allows you to do is fewer connections to manage, makes things neat and tidy. So one of the great examples is, number one, it's a single in and out of your environment. What that allows you to then do is compliance scanning here at your ingress point. So you can do network inspection as traffic is coming into your environment. That's one of the main benefits of setting it up this way. Another advantage is we can consume managed services in our production and staging environments. We can actually add more environments to this and just create another VPN tunnel through our transit. So really, we would only have to bring up one more tunnel. Another thing to point out, this was created in GovCloud. It's a NIST high environment, which for security, not all of the traditional AWS services are offered. So if this was in like a commercial environment, you could use Lambda to watch out for another VPC coming online, and you can automatically bring up a VPN tunnel. So, but this is a fairly static environment. It doesn't change.
Awesome. Yeah, so the other concept we wanted to highlight here was our managed services concept we spoke to briefly. Essentially, Deloitte Cloud Managed Services provided us a set of tools to operate our environment. Our goal really was to make sure that we were able to deliver the instances necessary to operate our environment, and then Deloitte Cloud Managed Services would then give us the set of tools necessary for ongoing operation following that piece. So, Brian, did you want to talk briefly to us about Deloitte Cloud Managed Services and how it differs from the traditional architecture you worked in the past?
Yeah, so managed services, we're going to consume privilege access management using products like Centrify, where we can join up servers to an Active Directory domain, compliance scanning using something like Tenable. But what this allows us to do is allows the application team to focus on our application environments instead of worrying about our like enterprise services, which would be like a traditional data center.
Okay. Awesome. So once we were able to get through the design phase, right, you had these accelerators that Deloitte Cloud Managed Services provided us. So we were able to easily communicate to our clients what our baseline was from an architectural perspective, and then working with their security group in the federal enterprise to really tweak and make sure they were comfortable with how we were going to implement our environment. Then we had to get to the point where we were going to execute this. Our biggest thing was we wanted to provide and deliver value to our clients as soon as possible. Typically in the federal space, you see some slow changes because it's harder to get through the delivery, but we were able to implement the build, launch, operate concept in our environment, giving speed to delivery for any changes necessary to the application that we were going to support. But the tweaks had to be made for GovCloud purposes. So when we talk about infrastructure as code, I know that's a piece that a lot of folks are interested in. Do you want to just define it for us, Dan, and talk a little bit about a baseline before we get into some of the details?
Sure, thanks. So deployment managed services, it drives all of our deployment of our immutable architecture through infrastructure as code. And as Franz mentioned, provided us accelerators that define secure VPCs, routing through transit, and back to deployment managed services. So it allowed us to basically focus on tailoring the infrastructure itself. We define our own cloud formation stacks, nested stacks. We get to concentrate on building our AMIs, making them, because that is the crux of our immutable architecture. And defining our AWS services, load balancers, security groups, etc., within each of our live runtime environments. And we can effectively stamp out identical versions of this environment connected directly back to managed services for configuration, monitoring, and security, serving any number of divisions, applications within an organization through centralized delivery managed services.
Great. So when we talk about building, you want to talk a little bit about what it is we're building in this phase? What assets are coming out of this phase here?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, we are baking AMIs using Packard information files. Or you're all familiar with Packard. It's technology. It allows you to, switch out builders and do configuration and basically build a golden deployable unit. So for us, it's an AMI, and we started off for our client. They have certain requirements around operating systems, security controls. So they give us a base image to start with. Then we bake in the security controls and configuration, application aspects through Ansible roles, depending upon what role that server plays in the environment. And then also through the same process, Packard allows us to run other Ansible configuration scripts to validate that security controls are in place and that the automated testing and the functionality is also in place before we mint an AMI to be deployed through our launch configurations and auto scaling groups. Packard gives us that flexibility also to switch or pivot to Docker containers based on the need, from our client if we decide to go in that direction and use Docker and ECS.
Awesome. So you'll see here, we have a concept here called repository driven. May mean a lot to a lot of different people, but we want to make sure we define that before we move on. Ben, can you talk to us a little bit about how we use this repository driven concept and how we benefited from it?
Of course. So by repository driven, I mean our repository is an exact mirror of our environment. That means everything from configuration, security, to infrastructure, to application building of AMIs, to automated testing and stuff, right? Any change to that code is automatically reflected in the runtime environment dependent upon your operations on the repository itself, right? So it doesn't just define in the content of the repository what is reflected in your live runtime environment, but also how it's reflected, and that gives you the flexibility that we needed in GovCloud or commercial, depending upon what climate we're serving. You'll notice too that there are some tools here. We talked about this, that there's certain tools that are not available in GovCloud because they don't meet also the high, moderate, physical requirement that we have. But the tools that we use all use build definition and marry up really well with the code developer tools that weren't available in GovCloud at the time. So it's an easy switch to do that and also still do our DevSecOps pipeline, build, launch, and operate.
Awesome. So in this build phase, essentially, at this point, we have baked AMIs, an asset that we would like to deploy to our environments. Gives us a level of traceability that we've never really had before, where configurations in a traditional environment were hard to track down, where they originated from, getting into your environment, getting away from the idea of a production-like environment and having an actual identical environment to do our development in, as well as some of our user-based testing as well. So from this point, we need to launch the instances that we've built, these AMIs, into our environment. Essentially, what we want to get to is to the point where we have exactly what instance in every environment. The skeleton is identical, but